Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Barbara Copperthwaite. Hello, Barbara. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about yourself and your books.
Well, I'm Barbara Copperthwaite. My latest book is handily here, The Girl in the Missing Poster. I write dark psychological thrillers, and this is my sixth one. The others have been Invisible, Flowers for the Dead, The Darkest Lies, The Perfect Friend, and Her Last Secret. And they're all standalones. And I really love to take characters and push them as far as I can, really, and pose moral dilemmas as well quite often. This is my sixth book, as I say, and my background is that I used to be a journalist for over 20 years. And for a very short period of time before that, I actually worked in a men's prison, in Barlinnie prison, for about a year, which was rather fascinating. And actually that sparked the idea for Invisible, which was my very first book, kind of about how well do we ever really know anybody. That was something that, having met all of these prisoners who were very, they were really decent fellas, you have a nice chat with them and all the rest of it, and then you discover what they're in for. So yeah, and I think that's where it sort of very first began, that little kernel of an idea, but I didn't get round to writing it until, I say, about 20 years later, when I was about to hit 40, and that's when I started writing. So yeah.
And did you always want to be a writer?
I always wanted to be a journalist. I did when I was younger. I wanted to work in conservation, and I'm actually still really passionate about nature and wildlife. Actually, it's a theme that runs through a lot of my books, is nature, and it's imagery that I tend to use quite a lot as well. I wanted to be a journalist, and strangely enough, when people used to ask me, oh, do you think you've got a book in you? Will you ever write a book? And I'd be like, no, why on earth would I want to make something up? I like to deal in facts, and that's what I do. And why on earth would I want to write a book and make things up? And then I hit 39 and suddenly thought, do you know what? I've got some ideas, and I'd really like to do something different. I'd been lucky enough to be promoted up and up and up in journalism, but that meant that I ended up getting further away from what had been my passion to start with, which was writing, and I really, really missed writing a lot. And so I started writing fiction initially just as something to do, a distraction, to see if I could do it. And before I knew it, I'd got this idea that turned out to be my first book, Invisible. I did have a couple of false starts with other ideas first, but Invisible just kind of snowballed. And before I knew it, I'd kind of become a bit obsessed with, right, I really want to get this finished, actually. And so I got the opportunity to take redundancy from my job, and begged to be considered for it, and I was allowed to go, and it was the week before my 40th birthday that I finished my job and turned my back on journalism, and just thought, wow, I must be crazy, but it's something I really want to do. I felt like this was a last chance to really make a dream come true, and do, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but have that exciting new chapter. And if I didn't do it now, then I probably never would get around to doing it. So it just felt right. And yeah, I've not really looked back.
And were you a big reader as a child and growing up?
Oh, yes. No, definitely, yes. I read all the time. I was obsessed with Enid Blyton. I read so many Enid Blyton books, and actually I grew up in the middle of the countryside, in a village called Friskney, which is it's on the edge of a sea marsh, and that's actually the setting for The Darkest Lies, one of my books. It was a strange village because growing up, it was in the middle of nowhere, like I say, on the edge of this sea marsh. But there were always, there was an RAF bomb site on the sea marsh. So even though I was in the middle of nowhere, I kind of grew up to these sounds of war with the planes flying over and dropping bombs that would make the school windows rattle, and you could hear machine gun fire as well. So no wonder I ended up making strange things up for a living. But yeah, so anyway, yes, I did read a lot as well, and spent quite a lot of time up various trees. I used to climb trees and read, so that I wouldn't get disturbed by anybody.
And as you grew up, was it crime fiction that you veered towards, or would you read anything?
I mean, like I say, I read a lot of Enid Blyton, to be honest, and the Five Findouters, which probably was my first crime crime introduction. But then in my sort of teens, I read a lot. I became a real sort of science fiction fantasy geek, and read a lot of that, a lot of the classics as well. And really wasn't into crime at all. And it was strange enough, it was my mum. My mum has always loved murders, always loved murders. Quite worried my dad sometimes, because she'd sort of be sitting there and just apropos nothing say, a really good way of killing somebody would be. So that's where I get it from. I know we used to watch lots of crime TV, but I didn't actually read very much. But when Stuart McBride first wrote Cold Granite, my mum said to me, oh, you know, I was in a bit of a reading slump. She said, oh, read this. This is really, really good. I have to admit, I was a bit crime fiction. Okay, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I read it, and that was it. I was just like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Why haven't I been reading more crime? And it was, like I say, he'd only just started writing at the time. And I just devoured everything that he brought out, Joe Nesbo as well. And it was only kind of, I'd had some ideas vaguely for fiction, but I wasn't really aware of psychological thrillers as a genre. So I thought, well, my ideas are too weird. They're not really crime, you know. They're too domestic-y, women-y. I don't really know what they are. And then The Girl on the Train came along, and I thought, oh, this is what the sort of thing that I want to write. This is it. Because the closest thing before that had been Engleby by Sebastian Faulks. And oh, wow, what a brilliant book. So yeah, there'd been that, which made me think, maybe. But yeah, after reading the Girl on the Train, I thought, wow, this is what I think I want to try and do that, you know.
Yeah, I think someone said that it moved from being horror to psychological fiction, which is now the in thing, which I'm grateful for, because there's some incredible books out now.
Yes, yeah, no, I think every year all of the authors just up their game again and again and again, and books that you know, would have been huge sellers now are just, you know, it's difficult to stand out in the crowd, because there are so many amazing authors out there and books out there. So yeah.
Do you have a favourite?
Oh, I have lots of favorites. So many favorites. I do love S.E. Lines, as Susie Lines. I love Louise Beach as well. I also I think that oh, my mind's gone blank. What is he called? He's one of my favorite authors. Where's he gone? Oh heck, I can't remember his name. It's always the way, isn't it, when you're talking to somebody. But, oh, Peter Swanson, that's it. How could I have forgotten Peter Swanson? But I actually think you can hear my dog growling. Yes, I think Peter Swanson is absolutely brilliant, and oh, the irony, but I buy every single one of his books without even reading them, and yet can't remember his name apparently.
I love how you've done the thing that I do of not naming books but naming authors, because every book they write is just as good. I couldn't tell you even 50 of my favourite books. Actually, I struggled to get it down to 10 authors. So
yeah. No, that's it. It is. There are just too many brilliant authors out there, and I always feel bad kind of naming them, because naming just a few, because there are so many that are just as good out there. So yeah.
Have you made friends with lots of authors since you've been writing?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's I think one of the amazing things about the book community is how friendly everybody is, and as soon as you're part of it, you're really part of it. Everyone's very, very welcoming and accepting and helpful, and yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I've got to say, Angie Marsons is just the nicest person in the world. Really, really genuine, lovely person, and has been very helpful to me. As I sort of mentioned to you when we were chatting earlier, I have been ill for a while, and Angie, has messaged me and made sure that I'm all right. And when I was struggling I wanted to start writing again, because I hadn't been able to write for a very long time. And she made suggestions to me about, okay, don't write on a laptop, get a notebook and just see what comes. Don't put any pressure on yourself to write something, just write little things that float into your mind. And I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I always write in the notebook now, so yeah. So Angie has been incredible, and also Sarah Ward. Sarah Ward is really lovely, and she's helped me out as well an awful lot. And Susie Lines, SE Lines, she's been brilliant. So yeah, it is, like I say, that's just a handful of the people. There are so many wonderful people in the book community. It's the nicest place to work. It really, really is.
Yeah, even being a reader in it is amazing. It has been the best thing about lockdown, I think, as well as finding all these people. It's been amazing. So yeah, I totally get that.
I think it's strange. Crime authors seem to have a particular reputation for being nice people. It's like we get all of our nastiness down on paper, out of us, and so because of that, we don't need to be nasty in real life.
Literally is the case as well. You're all the nicest people. And it's cool, and so giving with your time, and you're willing to accommodate us weirdos that keep messaging you about random stuff, and yeah, you're just generally like, yeah, that's fine.
It's lovely, we love it, and it really genuinely does help to keep us going. It's very easy to kind of sit here in our little offices and hunched over the laptop, typing away on our own, thinking, does anybody actually care? Notice if I do publish another book? So it's so lovely, and it really does make a massive difference when we hear from readers, and the interaction in book clubs. It's something that, again, because I was ill for a long time, and suffered and still suffer chronic fatigue, so I have to manage my time a lot. And so because of that, I haven't been able to be as active as I want to be on social media, and I really, really do miss being more a part of all of the book clubs that are on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. It's really nice to have that interaction. And it's only the last sort of 6 months that I've really been able to start getting back into that again. Because as I say, I sort of have to manage my energy quite a lot. So
Yeah. What's the most interesting thing you found when you've been doing research for your books?
oh gosh, all kinds of things. I mean, the girl in the missing poster was actually sparked by a real life documentary involving Jill Dando. But it also that there are several other real life crimes as well that have been involved. I had the initial idea for the girl in the missing poster from watching the Jill Dando documentary, and the brother saying, that he wanted to just understand why somebody had done what they did, and it wasn't necessarily about finding justice. It was about simply having somebody come forward and explain so that he could understand, and that's what really resonated with me. And so from there, the idea just kind of snowballed. But also from that, I started to do research into other crimes as well, and they were really, really fascinating, but I can't actually say anything about them because otherwise there'll be huge spoilers. But also with Flowers for the Dead, which actually is 6 years old now. But at the time that I was doing the research, it was quite a mind-blowing thing that was very little known at the time, that things with microphones could be then turned into listening devices as well. So it was really interesting to discover that. And I was like, this is amazing. And of course now it's old hat. But yeah, at the time it was absolutely incredible. So that really fascinated me. And in Her Last Secret, there's it's possible that there have been cases where people have got off murder, I discovered, because they have used the defense that they were sleepwalking at the time. So yeah, homicidal somnambulism is a thing. And I was really fascinated by that. And that sort of comes up in Her Last Secret. So yeah, it's I think one of the best things about being a writer is actually just the diving into things, and it's very easy to kind of lose yourself thinking, I want to find out about this. Ooh, what's that? Oh, what's that? And you and it takes you over here as well, and before you know it, you've sort of wasted an entire day down this rabbit hole of fascinating stuff, but that I don't know if I'll ever be able to use it or not.
In The Girl in the Missing Poster, you decided to make the main character an identical twin. Was there a reason for doing that rather than just a sister or a friend? Or
I think because I had this idea that, as I say, it was sparked by watching the Jill Dando documentary, and her brother sort of saying that he wanted somebody to explain why. And because of that, I had this idea about what if the killer were watching, and him getting in touch, or somebody getting in touch pretending to be the killer, or all of these different scenarios, and what would happen, and what would they say, and why on earth would somebody do that, if they were the killer or if they weren't the killer, and sort of all, like say, all these different scenarios. And then I just sort of was thinking about, okay, well, so I've got that, but what kind of person would be so obsessed? Because I wanted it to be a crime, a cold crime. And so I thought, well, who would still be so obsessed? I mean, I think it is understandable that you would never get over something like that. And it would be this huge hole in your life. But I wanted it to be more than that. It was almost sort of obsessive, and I was sort of thinking, well, I don't want it to be a mother and with her child, because I had already dealt with that sort of issue so much in The Darkest Lies. Because that's about a mother whose daughter is found in a coma out on the sea marshes, having been attacked, and the mother becomes obsessed with trying to find out who's done it, why. And there's this very small cast of villagers, and it's the village that she grew up in, and so it's everybody that she knows her whole life are now suspects. So I'd kind of in a very different way, but I felt that I'd dealt with a similar scenario, too similar to repeat it. And so because of that, then I thought, well, sisters, because I was thinking about how would I be? And I'm terrible at sort of dealing with things. If I know an answer to something, I can deal with it and I'm absolutely fine. But if I don't know something, I'm not very good at dealing with it, and it kind of goes round and round and round and round in my head, and I become obsessed with knowing the answer. I'm really bad at doing it. My partner Paul's always like, you really let it go. But I'm always like, why? Which is, I think, the reason why I became a journalist in the first place. But anyway, and then I was thinking about my own sisters and how I would be, and that's when I just thought, yeah, an identical twin would be probably the most horrifying person that something like that could happen to, because you're looking in the mirror and you are constantly seeing not just yourself, but the person who's gone, and you're seeing them age as well as yourself, and it's part of you. It's it's the other half of you. So I think I was just fascinated by that once that had popped into my head, I just, yeah, that is the worst scenario, and that's the one that is therefore the most interesting to look into, really.
Yeah, and I never really thought about it actually until I started reading it. But when you say that she can't look at herself in the mirror fully, it's like, well, yeah, of course, because yeah, she's seeing her twin's face as much as she's seeing her own. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, of course. So yeah, it does work. Yeah.
I contacted, there's a network called the Lone Twin Network, and they are specifically set up for twins, not just identical, non-identical too, but twins who have lost their sibling. And it's just this, it's such a unique situation for each of them. And yeah, it's something that I think, unless you are a twin, you probably can't fully understand it. But it was fascinating to get this insight, and they were kind enough to help me. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Which of your books would you most like to be a character in?
I want to be a character in any of them. I put them all through the mill too much. There's not a single person that has a good time in any of my books, really. So pass. I think the only one possibly would be probably The Darkest Lies, just because that is set where in the village where I grew up. It's a fictional version of it, but it is set in the village where I grew up. And I say because of that, I'd feel very comfortable in its world. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be a character in any of them.
In The Girl in the Missing Poster, you have quite a lot of focus on dogs and dog behaviour and puppy farms. So it's obviously something you feel strongly about.
Yes, definitely. I have 2 dogs myself. Stella's dogs are called Buddy and Scamp and Buster, and she rescues Fifi. And I have 2 dogs at the moment who are sat asleep on the sofa, and they are called Scamp and Buddy, and they are the characters in The Girl in the Missing Poster are very much my dogs. Buster is my old dog who died a few years ago, and so it was a really nice way of sort of memorializing them and keeping them forever in one of my books. But yeah, I've always loved animals. I wanted to, for a while when I was growing up, I wanted to work in animal conservation and wildlife conservation. So that's always been something I've been passionate about. And dogs are just, as I was growing up, we always had dogs. So there's never been a time in my life when I haven't had at least one dog. And I just love them. And the idea of anybody being cruel or hurting them is very upsetting, obviously. And yeah, it's. I think the puppy farming is something that I thought it was an interesting chance to just slightly highlight, not too much, because ultimately that's not what the book is about, but I felt that it was a decent chance to just kind of highlight slightly that we all need to be a little bit aware, especially it seems so timely now because obviously things have gone a bit crazy with puppies and the prices and dog napping and all sorts. So it does seem quite timely, really.
It shocked me actually that people would hire people to pretend to be the have the mother dog,
Yes.
to show that was I mean, it shouldn't surprise me because people are sick, but you have to be so careful.
If there's a chance to make money, that's all that some people can see is the opportunity to make money, sadly, rather than seeing a living creature that's got its own thoughts and feelings and is entirely dependent upon us. So yeah. And with Stella being a dog behaviorist as well, it just, like I say, it felt like a natural opportunity because Stella being a dog behaviorist just seemed like an ideal opportunity to bring a character in who it showed that she still cared. She'd cut herself off. She has cut herself off a lot from people. She doesn't trust people. She doesn't like people because of what's happened to her sister in the past. But that doesn't mean to say that she is devoid of love and care. And I wanted to still show that side of her. And so the dogs gave the perfect opportunity for that. And also the chance to have a little bit of using her dog behavior skills at reading canine body language to kind of then converting that to reading human body language and this sort of almost like a human lie detector or not, how effective is it really? But yeah, it was quite interesting because I had a real dog behaviorist come out when I first got Buddy because he was a rescue dog and I was very keen to make sure that he settled in properly and as quickly as possible. So I hired a dog trainer just for a few weeks to make sure that we were doing everything that we could to support him. And she made a comment about how often it's about training the person, the owner, rather than the dog. And I just thought, oh, that's really interesting. I'll squirrel that away. And then when I had the idea for the girl in the missing poster, I just thought that's the job that she needs to have.
Yeah, I love the using the dog behaviour to look at human behaviour. I imagine it's not too dissimilar. Well, I haven't finished it yet, so I'll see if it works or not. But yeah, I love that. I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed writing it. I really enjoyed writing her, actually. And I think it makes a nice change that she's sometimes in psychological thrillers, because of everything that's happening, we are writing about people who are at their most vulnerable a lot of the time, which means that sometimes they can come across almost as a little bit hysterical. But Stella's not like that. Stella is, she's very strong. She's very sorted. Almost too sorted sometimes, she's and she puts up with no nonsense at all, but she was great fun to write, and just no matter what you throw at her, Stella just kind of goes, okay, right, let's get on with this. So yeah, she was great fun.
I can imagine, actually. Yeah. Do you struggle thinking of character names, and how do you decide character names?
Hello, this is Scamp, everybody.
Oh, gorgeous.
Go on you go, Scamp. Come on, get down. Good girl. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Sorry, what was that question?
It was, do you struggle writing character names, and how do you decide on character names?
I do. I really hate coming up with character names. I think a lot of authors are the same. And Stella went through many different incarnations, because until I get a name right, I really struggle to quite get the person right. And as I was writing Stella, I was still thinking, it's not right. Because they were twins, I kept coming up with things like, what were they called? Oh, at one point they were Catherine and Scylla or something, but two C names, and I just thought, oh, I don't like that. No, it's too obvious to have, two names that begin with C. And so I kept looking, and then I came across, I was just kept Googling ideas for meanings of names. And I sort of thought, oh, stars. I don't know why, but I just like names with stars and sky. And I came across Stella and Layla. And in the book, I sort of explained the meaning. As soon as I saw the meaning of those names, because Stella means star and Layla means dark sky, night sky. And as soon as I had those two names, I said, yes, now I know the characters. It's really strange, but there's a lot of trial and error that goes into the names for me. I don't know why it means so much, but it really does. Yeah, it's really strange, but it is like they're real people, and they're just sort of, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but it's like they're just out there waiting to be discovered. And I'm feeling around in a dark room, and eventually I find the light. I'm like, there you are, I knew you were there. There you are, now I can write you properly. So
If you have any, have you ever dreamt of your characters or your books?
Oh, I dream about scenes quite a lot. Not necessarily sort of directly related to my present work, but I have quite cinematic dreams all the time. I'll kind of wake up and I'll say to my partner Paul, oh, I've had this great dream, and I'll sort of describe this very convoluted, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's yeah, it's really strange. Sorry, Scamp, it's all right. There's a good girl. So yes, I do. And I know I keep talking about The Darkest Lies when I should be talking about The Girl in the Missing Poster, but it's really strange that you should ask that question, because The Darkest Lies, I was torn between two starts for the book, and neither of them I was 100% sold on. And I sort of went to bed one night and thought, you know what, I'm just going to sleep on it, and I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll make the decision. And so I went to sleep. And when I woke up, I realized I'd had a dream that was the prologue, and it became the prologue. I wrote it that day. I was like, I'll quickly write that down. And it was completely different from either of the previous choices that I thought I was deciding between. And as soon as I had that, it stayed all through the edits. Yeah, all the way through, word for word, the way that I'd written it the first time. So yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing. The mind is a very strange thing. It's incredible what you can do in your subconscious,
Yeah. And what's your worst nightmare, and would you ever write about it?
I don't have nightmares, because actual nightmares, because when I mentioned the somnambulism and all the rest of it, one of the reasons why I had that idea and used it in Her Last Secret is because as a child, I used to have terrible nightmares, really, really terrible nightmares all the time. And I learned, I have no idea how I came up with the idea, let alone how I did it, but I kind of trained myself to be able to recognize when I was dreaming and think to myself, this is a bad dream. Even though I was in the middle of a dream, I'd be able to think to myself, this is a bad dream. It's okay. You're in control. You can change this. You don't have to be running away from a monster or whatever. You can just walk through that door and close it on the monster and everything before. So I sort of learned how to do that. And so I never have really bad dreams anymore. And when I was doing research for Her Last Secret, I discovered that this actually is, it's a recognized thing, and it's a taught thing. If you go to sort of sleep clinics because you have bad dreams, it's actually taught to people as a coping mechanism. So yeah, that's how that ended up in Her Last Secret, which I found really fascinating, especially the fact that I'd managed to somehow stumble across that as a child and decide to do it myself, which is crazy.
But amazing, yeah, that's awesome. Do you have absolutely no-go areas that you'll never write about?
No, not really. No, I think you can never say never. And I think that there are, I mean, particularly in the genre that I write, but no matter what genre, you can tackle any subject. It just depends how you tackle it. And if you know, how, I think you have to be very caring in the way that you tackle certain subjects. Definitely, there's a responsibility on us as writers to tackle certain things in sensitive ways and to make sure that we do our research and that we're accurate. But I don't think that there is anything that I wouldn't tackle. I would just be wary of tackling certain things and sort of, you know, like say, do my research. But like I say, because I used to be a journalist, I love research anyway. So you know, and would definitely feel that weight of responsibility to get things right. I mean, even things like, you know, when I'm writing about mothers who have lost their children, I don't have children, and so I always worry about, you know, am I getting this right? And again, do a lot of research and put myself into you know, the person's shoes and stuff. So yeah, I think there's always a weight of responsibility no matter what subject we tackle, and yeah, there's definitely nothing that is off limits as long as it is done in a sympathetic way. I mean, in Flowers for the Dead, Adam is abused as a child. I'm not graphic at all. I make it obvious what's being done to him and by whom, but it is not graphic, it is not gratuitous, it is not there for entertainment, it is there to just show the impact that something like that can have on people. You know, and that's the sort of the driving force behind it. So there's no need to go into detail about it. It is enough to hint at things.
If you were to spend a day with an author, alive or dead, who would you choose to spend a day with?
I'd quite like to spend the day with Charles Dickens, because although I think, I mean, to be honest, he wasn't great with women, but he just had some amazing stories, and I think he'd be thoroughly entertaining. So he'd be a fascinating person to have dinner with and just sit and listen to him and ask him lots of questions, to be honest, about, you know, his own personal experiences in the workhouse and, you know, the impact that his childhood had on him. It would be fascinating to hear that firsthand and have a really in-depth conversation with him. So I'd probably do quite a lot of interviewing.
That's the journalist coming out again, isn't
No,
it?
that's it.
And if you were able to travel back to any period in time, which period would you choose?
Ooh, I'm fascinated with medieval history. I read quite a lot of non-fiction history books, and I love the Tudors and the medieval period prior to the Tudors, so sort of late medieval. So I'd probably travel back then and have a bit of a squiz around, you know, and see what it's actually like. It would be really amazing to meet somebody like Elizabeth I as well, and Henry VIII, and just see what these people were like. So yeah. Although obviously that their hygiene would leave something to be desired, but it would be very interesting.
And I hope you don't get ill as well, because
yes,
that's
it.
That would
not catch
good.
plague or something. Or smallpox.
Yeah, good point, actually. What's your most embarrassing story?
Oh, I have so many.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Oh, I have so many embarrassing stories. I did, when I was going for a job interview, it was my very first job interview on a national magazine. And it was a big deal to me, obviously. I'd been working on local newspapers and then at a press agency, and I really wanted to work. It was Chat magazine. And so I'd been invited along for an interview. I'd already written a test piece for them. I'd been invited along to an interview, and I was sitting there. The features editor came over and sat on my desk and was chatting to me, and he was explaining to me what he wanted me to do all day, you know, who to contact and what features, right? And I got my notebook out, my spiral bound reporter's notebook out, so that I could make notes. But the whole time that he was talking to me, all I could think was, there was a tampon that was stuck in the spiral
Oh, no.
of the notebook. And so instead of listening to him, all I was doing was I'd got my little finger and I was just trying to winkle it out. And I was going, and I'd kind of got it hidden. And I was just trying to winkle. All I was thinking about was doing that. I didn't hear a word that he said. I just nodded a lot. And at the end of it, he went, right, so you're happy with everything? You've got all of that? And I just went, and he walked away, and I just thought, I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, somehow I managed and I did get the job. But it was really embarrassing. I really found that so mortifying.
How do those things always get in places where they're the most inconvenient all the time?
I know, that's it. And because I was so young as well. I mean, if it happened to me now, I'd just go, oh, look.
Yeah, how did that get there?
Just a second. Just let me get this out. But at the time I was about 22, 23, and all I could think about was, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Oh, how could this happen to me? Please don't let him notice. But you know, he didn't. So
the thing is now, especially if you were, oh, look at that, they'd probably be like, oh God, because men and women's things are like,
he'd be way more embarrassed than me.
Yeah. Oh, bless. If you were to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not really bothered about famous people, so I don't know who I'd actually ask. Oh dear. It would probably just be for authors. And I would love to have a chat with M.W. Craven. I think he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And and he just comes across as very funny, not only in his books but in
on Twitter and stuff. Yeah,
Twitter.
I'm talking to him soon. I can't wait, in the beginning of June.
He'll be so entertaining, far more than me. But yeah, he will be so entertaining. He'll be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, he'd be somebody that I would love to have over for dinner and have a chat with. And again, Louise Beach is always, she's hilarious as well. I feel if I have people like that round, then I kind of like to just sit back and watch people rather than be terribly entertaining myself. So they'd do all the hard work for me and I could just sit and be entertained, and that would be great. So
Sounds like fun.
yeah.
What superhero power would you choose if you could have one?
I would have the superpower of being able to write at the speed of light. Because since my illness, I'm very, very, very slow. I used to be much faster. But as I think I mentioned earlier, I was ill. I actually fell ill 3 years ago now. And it had quite a profound impact on me. And I couldn't do any writing at all for well over 6 months. And then when I was able to start writing again, I was only able to sort of write a line here and a line there and a couple of paragraphs another day. So The Girl in the Missing Poster actually took me 2 years to write, which is just unprecedented amount of time for me. And I have so many ideas, and I don't know if life is long enough to ever be able to write them all. So I would love, because I'm still very, very slow. I'm as slow as I was, but I'm still very, very slow. So I would love to have that superpower of just, or even not even just writing, but maybe be able to take an idea direct from my brain and just download it. That would be, yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, that saves a lot of manpower, actually.
Oh yeah. The money I could make from just, yes, Barbara's got another book out, but she only had one out yesterday.
Well, we're quite demanding, us crime fiction readers, so I don't think we'd mind. Always getting told off for nagging authors for writing too slow.
Oh, it's wonderful, like I say, having that interaction with the readers is really, really lovely. And it's always just brilliant to know that people actually do care and are interested in when you have the next book out, rather than just writing in isolation and wondering if anybody will even notice when your next book drops. So no, nag away, do nag away. None of us mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I reckon I'm stretching it with some. Mark Tilbury being one. He's always telling me.
He's such a lovely person as well, though, isn't he? I'm sure he doesn't mind. So
no. He calls us his Annies, like Annie Wilkes from Misery. So yeah, he's fine. We just threaten to hobble him. That soon shuts him up. I don't think he's generally scared, but I think sometimes maybe a little bit. Keeps him on his toes, it's fine. What's been your favourite moment as being an author so far?
I think actually, to be honest, just being part of the book community is my favorite part of it, because as I was saying earlier, that everybody's just so friendly and genuine and lovely, the readers and the authors. So that's actually my favorite part. I think nothing will ever beat the excitement of having my first book published. I actually self-published Invisible and Flowers for the Dead, and the excitement of both of those was amazing. And and hitting #1 in Italy with The Perfect Friend translation was just, that blew my mind. It was just incredible because it was so unexpected. Obviously, I knew that there was a translation and that it was out there, but I had no idea how well it was going. And to be honest, I only found out by accident. One day I was sort of idly wondering to myself, oh, because the last time I checked, it hadn't been, it'd been doing okay, but it hadn't been setting the world on fire. And so it'd been weeks since I'd checked. I thought, I wonder how it's doing. I'll just have a quick look, see where it is. It's probably disappeared into the millions. And just checked the ranking and thought that I must be misreading that. There must be a glitch. And I kept refreshing it, thinking there's a glitch. Something's gone wrong somewhere. And I couldn't believe my eyes. So at the time, I think it was about #7, and I thought in the whole of Italy in Amazon, and I thought, well, that can't be right. And then every time I refreshed, it was going up, and I thought, what's going on? And then when I hit #1, it was just, it was absolutely incredible. So that was an amazing thing. And also, to be perfectly honest, getting The Girl in the Missing poster out is just. When I was ill, I was so profoundly struck down with chronic fatigue afterwards, and I've still got a lot of chronic fatigue issues, and also I've got problems with my immune system that are ongoing, and so at one point I genuinely didn't know if I'd ever be able to write anything again. And that was, obviously really upsetting and took a lot of coming to terms with. And when I was writing The Girl in the Missing poster, I didn't know if I'd ever finish it. I didn't know if it would be any good if I did ever finish it. And I kind of had to, there was this, I kept telling myself to be more tortoise. That became like my mantra, because before I'd always been hare and kind of, I could write very quickly. I'd been a journalist, I was used to hitting deadlines, and I was very, very quick all the time. And I suddenly had to train myself to be more tortoise and kind of, just one step at a time. One step is enough. That's okay. And I knew that I would reach the end eventually, but I'd had no clue when that would be. And so the fact that The Girl in the Missing poster has been finished, has been edited, has now been published, it's quite amazing. It really is quite amazing. And no matter, obviously I want it to do well, I'm not gonna lie, of course I want it to do well, but the mere fact of its existence really is quite incredible, to be perfectly honest. And I'm very, very, very proud of what that book represents. And actually, I write about it in my author letter at the back of the book. I actually do write about that. And when I read it back to my partner, I burst into tears as I was reading it to him. It's fine writing it, but when I read it out loud, it just hit me. It just hit me how far I'd come. And it was very emotional to know, right, I've got this far, I've done it. So I think it's one of my proudest achievements, actually, is just doing that.
Yeah. So what's coming next for you then?
Well, I've got several ideas that I'm actually working on at once at the moment. One of them, I know. I've got several psychological thriller ideas, and I'm currently working on one in particular that's just really, it keeps tapping on my brain and it just won't go away. And don't ignore me. So I'm working that out at the moment. But I'm also writing, it's a historical fiction, but it's a really dark, of course, it's a very, very dark historical fiction with a psychological thriller sort of bent to it. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
not, although it is a historical fiction, it's not a massive step away from my normal sort of genre. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
No, I don't think so. No, just that the girl in the missing poster is currently 99p. So that's very important for me to mention. So please buy it. And do tell me what you think when you've read it. Yes, it's about a girl. I don't think I've really talked about what it's about, but it's about a woman who is she's a twin, and her sister goes missing when she's 19 years old back in 1994, and in the present day Stella is still searching for her sister and trying to find out what happened to her. And every year on the anniversary she goes around putting missing posters up around the seaside town that she lives in. And on the 25th anniversary, as that's approaching, she gets asked by a documentary maker who's making a real life crime TV program for Netflix, and they want to do something about Layla's disappearance. And so Stella agrees to take part, it's so that it will sort of breathe life into the cold case again. And from that, Stella then starts to get messages from somebody who is claiming to be the killer, and they have an interesting offer to make to her. So yeah, have to read it to find out what the offer is, and what Stella decides to do.
Yeah. So before we go, do you just want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you and your books?
Yes, if you go to Amazon and my author page, then you can find out about me there. I'm also on Twitter. It's at B Copperthwaite, but the E has to be missing because B Copperthwaite with an E is actually a teenage boy, and I think he gets tagged quite a lot. I'm also on Instagram, Barbara Copperthwaite, spelled correctly. And I have a website as well, and indeed a WordPress blog. So you can find me pretty much anywhere. But thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It's been lovely chatting.